Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Arizona Opera Behind the Scenes. I'm Cassie Robel, the Director of Education and Community Engagement.
And I'm Kathleen Trott, the shop manager for the Marlu, Allan, and Scott Stallard Costume Artisan Workshop. Thank you all for joining us today. In this podcast series, we're going to introduce you to all the departments and people that are necessary to produce the operas that you enjoy.
In our last episode, we announced that we would be joined by prop supervisor Elena Maniscalco. She will actually be appearing in episode 6 of Arizona Opera Behind the Scenes. And in this episode, we're joined by Alita Lopez, Arizona Opera's wigs and makeup manager. Before we get to this episode, we wanted to give you the answer to the trivia question from episode 4. The question was, the infamous mask from the movie Halloween was actually a famous person's face. Whose was it? And the answer is William Shatner. We are joined today by Alita Lopez, the Arizona Opera wigs and makeup manager. Welcome, Alita.
Hi.
Thanks for being here with us today.
No problem.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So I know what you do because we work really closely, the costume department and the wig and makeup department.
Correct.
But for our listeners, can you tell me sort of in general, what exactly does a wig and makeup manager do?
Sure. Primarily, I work with the directors and designers, if there's designers on the show, to come up with a look for each character. That includes hair color and hairstyles and makeup looks as well. So we do that for all of our principal singers and then our chorus as well. And often I am the designer for our company's wigs.
So then, just so you know, everybody who's listening knows, because they might not realize this, you most of the time are not styling the actual performer's hair, right?
Correct.
You put wigs on almost everyone who's on stage.
Yes. So very rarely do we use somebody's own hair. And that primarily is because styling somebody's hair prior to a show would take upwards of half an hour, depending on the type of style it is. It could take longer. So to have a pre-styled wig shortens that time to about, 10 to 15 minutes of prepping their hair and then putting the actual wig on them. And we also, wigs tend to have quite a bit of hair in them, so that you can style them into period hairstyles a lot simpler than you can with humans' natural hair.
So when you introduced what a wig and makeup manager is, you mentioned that you work with the designer. So you're communicating with the designer and they're saying, I want this person's hair to look like it's from the 1950s with this style. Is it that in depth and you take that, or are you more creating?
So, and that is the difference between working with the director and working with the designer. So not all shows that we produce here at Arizona Opera is there a designer involved. In my level, often it's just I am the designer for the wigs and the makeup looks, and I'm not getting any input from another person as to how they should necessarily look other than the director's kind of general vision for the show. So that typically falls under time period of the show, what the costume package is, what, is it realism, is it fantasy, what those parameters are. When I'm working with a designer specifically who's coming in and designing costumes and the set and, the whole thing sometimes, then it's a little bit more detailed, I think, because they typically have spent more time on each person's individual look than a director has. I think a director looks at a wider picture and a designer is a little bit more focused in on specific things that they want to see.
Sure, that makes sense.
Designers designers often come in with a whole bunch of research themselves, and then having been a designer here, I've had this conversation with Alita, so I'll come in with a whole bunch of like, so Don Pasquale is a really good example, the one that we did that's set in the 1950s that has been rented out a whole bunch. I brought research to Alita and I sat and we talked, and then that one has the extra complication of there's black and white makeup happening. So I was like, it should look like this person, and then she provided some extra research, so there's a little bit more back and forth.
Right.
Or the designer will go, I don't know, some sort of 1950s hairstyle that looks nice.
Yeah.
And so then Alita can go, okay, these are the 3 choices that I think will look really well on her face. And then you kind of pick.
Yeah. And it is up to, the designer's kind of interest level in hair and makeup also, because some of them are like, I don't care.
I don't care. Just
and other people have a very specific look that they want per character.
Totally. So. Yeah, I totally understand. I do that myself with designing sets. I'm like, go for it. I don't know. You know better than me.
Yeah, because like with Bohème, I was just like, Alita, do it.
Yeah.
Alita knows Victorian hairstyles really well, and I love Alita and trust her. And so I was like, she will make beautiful things. But when it's a very specific...
Sure.
So Riders of the Purple Sage, she and I had a whole conversation about braid, not braid, up, down. And in the dress rehearsal process, Alita is a saint because she often has to restyle wigs overnight because things change.
Correct.
And so she, in the morning, is taking curls out and rebraiding and pinning because we realize that it's not reading the way that we want on stage, or the designer didn't know what they actually wanted, or whatever.
Yeah. So before we dive even deeper into, we just got a brief overview of what you do. I also want to tell the listeners a little bit about you. You had said that you're, behind the scenes a lot. People may not ever see you, but they see your work and every show that we do. So how long have you been working with Arizona Opera?
I started working with Arizona Opera in 2001. So coming up on 20 years.
I think that Alita and our stage manager, Carrie, are both the longest running. Do you know which one of you is?
I started before Carrie.
So Alita wins.
Only by a few months, though.
By months, Alita, I think, wins the longest person that's worked at Arizona Opera, which is super, super cool. So
we have some chorus members.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. There's...
As far as...
But, like, with continued work, I think, Alita is...
And you don't live in Phoenix.
I do not. I live in Tucson.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of you know, but Arizona Opera did originate in Tucson.
Correct.
So you've been with us for 20 years. What sort of training do you have, or do you need to do what you do?
How did you end up here?
So I was an esthetician prior to coming to work for Arizona Opera. And so I worked at a salon, and I did a lot of... event makeup, right? So weddings and proms, stuff like that. And then I did the occasional makeup for like print work, and for a couple of music videos I did some makeup. So I did a little bit of makeup for a couple of years prior to coming to Arizona Opera. And I had a friend who was working as a dresser for Arizona Opera. And she was like, you should come and talk to the wig and makeup person. She always needs people. So I was like, okay. So I ended up having a phone conversation with her, and she was like, can you come and meet me? Here's where I will be. Here's the time. So I assumed I was just coming for like an interview with her. Right.
Right.
And I walked into the back of the TCC, and she's like, here's all the makeup. Here's the people you're doing. Here's what you're doing.
I love it.
And see you later.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, and I had never done stage makeup, which is completely different than any other makeup that you see anywhere. Well,
sure.
I don't know. Nowadays, it's getting a little close.
Closer. I agree. I was going to say, I don't know nowadays, but yeah.
But still, it's still quite different. So I literally had no idea what I was doing, and I was just like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I will just go ahead and,
that is
try my hardest.
I actually love that. You kind of, and you never left. So clearly it went well.
Yeah.
Or if it didn't, you at least found
I was terrified for sure. Like, and probably I was terrified for the first couple of years because just because of the time constraints and the having to think of solutions like within, seconds, you have to come up with a solution sometimes to a major problem. So it was a little frightening at first. And once I had some experience, got a little easier. But so basically I came in as a makeup artist and only worked shows. And then Sarah, who was our wig and makeup manager at the time, she was like, do you have any interest in learning how to do wigs? And I was like, sure, of course, So I kind of just worked with her in the shop for a couple of seasons, being her, I'd make makeup kits. I wasn't in I wasn't in on a full-time basis or even part-time basis. I just kind of came in and did a few things. And then I was her assistant after that for quite a few years. And then the company moved up here to Phoenix. And I moved up here for a couple years, and due to family things, I had to move back to Tucson. So,
but what's cool is that we have these employees that live in both places which is great. I mean, I love it, and we still perform in Tucson. Everything we do in Phoenix, we basically do in Tucson.
We try to,
yeah, sure. Especially now in this digital age, it's actually been really cool for me. I've been able to do a lot of stuff that includes both Phoenix and Tucson together
at the same time.
Yeah,
because most of the time cool. It's in one place and then the other place. And so Alita and a lot of her crew are also from Tucson, so
Correct.
They do a whole bunch of, so they'll travel up here and they'll be up here for over a week because they have to be here for the entire dress rehearsal process and for the performances. And then we go down to Tucson, and then they're in their home base. Or when we were opening shows in Tucson,
right.
They liked that.
I have heard a funny story about Alita and her traveling with wigs. So apparently, you have to have a mannequin, or at least a mannequin head, to transport the wigs. So Alita told me a funny story about her travels with these wigs in her car that I hope that you will share.
So I have a station wagon that the seats all fold down in, and I have racks that are specifically made to fit into my car and hold multiple levels of wigs, so I can transport them all from my studio in Tucson up here for the show. And sometimes I'm, fitting 40 wigs in the back of my car. So from the outside of my car, they're not really mannequin heads, but they're a cloth block head, so they're head shaped. They don't have any facial features, but they have a full head of hair that's styled, and with a glance, they probably look like people. So, I get a lot of weird looks from passerbyers when I'm driving my car, but one time specifically I got pulled over because the police officer thought I had multiple people.
Like 30 people.
Far too many people that actually fit in a station wagon.
Correct.
Sitting in the back of your car.
That story cracks me up because I can just picture, a station wagon's a big car, with lots of windows, and I can just picture 30 mannequin heads in the back, and on a really quick glance, you would think that they're real humans.
It's so funny because I've seen Alita's car full of wigs so many times, and it doesn't even clock to me that it's funny looking because it's just normal.
Right.
So,
it just makes me laugh. It's like one of those things that you definitely see when people transport very odd stuff. And you're like, wait a second.
I've had to take mannequins in my car, and so then there's legs and arms and
flailing
up. That one is definitely. Yeah. I've had that moment where I'm like, if I get pulled over, this is going to be a weird conversation.
Yeah, totally. I had the severed head from Salome on my front seat of my car before because I had to take it home and work on it.
So we just learned about what wigs and makeup, what you do. A lot of people probably don't realize, what it is. Wigs and makeup to me is one of those things similar to when we had Shelby on the show, that you see it on stage and it's something that doesn't necessarily compute that that's something that someone created.
Has to do it. Yeah.
Which Shelby actually said, she was like, wow, that's a compliment to be told that you don't realize. And it kind of opened my eyes because I guess that makes sense if it looks realistic.
That's the magic of stage, right? Is that we don't necessarily see all those details. We just assume that they're just there, right? And that's exactly what our end goal is. I don't want you to know that it's a wig. Sometimes I can't avoid that, but
right, sure.
But it shouldn't look like something that you're not used to seeing.
Briefly said before how different stage makeup is from real life makeup. And if you could explain that a little bit, I think that'd be really interesting. And then tell us what the difference is between doing makeup and wigs for film, and have you ever done that before, and doing it for stage, so stage versus film.
Done a couple of things, and I have that was part of my training initially, so I do have some knowledge in film. I'm a little bit like, I've been trying to like practice up in my spare time and do stuff. Another thing that we have for that film is some special effects stuff that we have to do, which I do plenty of at the opera. But the thing that is quite different, obviously, in between stage and film is stage, you're seeing everything from 50 feet away or further. It actually has to be bigger, bulkier, more dramatic to be able to read for that distance. So
right,
when I put like, a gash on somebody that's on their face or neck or wherever, it's typically, has to be 4 to 5 inches long for you to even notice that they have something on them. So obviously in film, that is the exact opposite, where you're seeing things up close, and especially with, the HD camera and stuff that they're using now, it's like you can see it on TV. You can see people's pores now, which you could never see before. And I remember, basically with film, you want them to look like they don't have any makeup on unless they're supposed to look like they have makeup on, right? So all the men that are in the show that are supposed to be dirty minors will probably have some makeup on them to make them appear dirty and sweaty and like they've been working all day long. But they will not have, lovely eyelashes and contoured cheeks and stuff like that, right? That we do on stage.
Yeah.
To make sure you can see them on stage. So that's, stage makeup is exactly, like I said, quite opposite. And you're contouring the face because with lighting on stage, it kind of flattens features out and you can't see that they have a nose or eyes or a mouth anymore. So we do contouring to bring facial features back out.
What's always interesting to me is being able to be behind the scenes sometimes. Stage makeup has always fascinated me because often when you see the person like face to face, not on stage, they actually look a bit ridiculous sometimes.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And you kind of look at them like, what is on your face?
Yes.
But then you see them on stage and they look totally normal. So it just it's a crazy skill and weird illusion. I mean, I feel like this 50-foot rule is, everyone uses the 50-foot rule in opera because it's just such things change so much at such a distance.
Right. Well, and lighting too. I mean, lighting changes things dramatically and can make also, can do really weird things to makeup as well.
So do you have a favorite style of makeup? Or makeup and hair.
Yeah, or a favorite like makeup technique or something.
Anytime I can put blood into a show.
Yeah,
that always makes me very happy.
When we're in production meetings, that's always a question that we ask is there any blood? And costumes is always like, please no, please no, please no. Like, and Alita is like, please yes, please yes. Yeah. Because it's so much fun to do.
It is
from her perspective.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I mean, some of my favorite shows were, my very favorite show, we did Sweeney Todd years and years ago.
Say was that one
and
sounded really fun.
I got to hide in the chute in between the, where
the chair and
in between the chair and where they came out for Mrs. Lovett. I was on stage in the set with like this black sheet around me, basically. And so they would slide down the slide and land on this platform. And I had like a ketchup bottle, squeeze bottle full of blood. And I just was back there for, I don't even know how long. And
a good part of
the show, just squirting blood all over people. So when they come out the thing, they're full of blood. So I was just like, that if I could just do that for the rest of my life, I'd be very happy.
I love that. We are going to take a quick break from the episode to tell you about a few exciting upcoming events at Arizona Opera. If you have enjoyed learning about Alita and her job here at Arizona Opera, she will be leading our next virtual masterclass, Intro to Beading, on February 26th. These masterclasses are hosted via Zoom and allow you the option of having a kit with all of your necessary supplies sent right to your door. In March, we will also be repeating our first 2 masterclasses, Intro to Fabric Painting with Resist and Intro to 2-Part Resin. To purchase tickets to any of these masterclasses, visit our website, azopera.org. Last month, Arizona Opera premiered its new series, Loud, Living Opera Understanding Diversity. Our 4th and final episode of this season will premiere on Thursday, February 25th. In addition to Loud, a new episode of Unmiked will premiere on Tuesday, February 23rd. To watch these episodes, or to find more information, visit Arizona Opera's video channel, Arizona Opera On Demand. And finally, we are excited to announce the premiere of our new concert series, Arizona Arias, which will premiere on Sunday, March 14th on Arizona Opera On Demand. To learn more and never miss a moment, visit azopera.org to sign up for our email list, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Can you talk me through a little bit about how you might make a wig?
Yes. So that's something that most people don't see also, is that whole side of things, is where our wigs come from and how the progression that they go through before they actually go on a person's head. So there are multiple ways of achieving that, obviously. And typically here at Arizona Opera, because of our timing, our time schedule for a show, and the amount of people in a show, I work from our stock primarily. So we have a very large stock of wigs that we've accumulated over the years. And so when people, I should say performers, when the performers come, they come for a costume fitting and they come for a wig fitting. So when they come in my room, they get their hair all pinned down, and then depending on what color, what length, what kind of hairstyle I'm going to do, I will look through what we have in our stock and see if there's anything that fits them and that will be the right thing for the character. And if we do, then yay, we use that. If we don't, then I will make them something. So that typically consists of a pre-made wig that we buy, and that can either be a synthetic wig or a human hair wig. Typically, I like to use human hair on our principal singers because I can use hot tools on them and touch them up very easily. However, synthetic wigs hold styles a lot longer than human hair wigs. So human hair is affected by body heat and humidity and all
We all know
kind
that,
of things.
yeah.
All the things that affect our hair.
Right,
Yeah.
affect a human hair
humidity.
wig. Exactly. So they can behave very differently depending on the person, and if they're a sweaty person, so that also can kind of help me make the decision whether they get a human hair wig or a synthetic wig. So pre-made wig, and then what we do is while they're getting their wig fitting, if we don't have anything, I will do a head tracing. So that is basically I get their hair as flat against their head as I possibly can, and I proceed to wrap saran wrap all over their head, and then I tape all the saran wrap down to their head. It's a very bizarre process.
It looks so weird. It looks like
very weird.
Alita's doing something really weird.
Yeah.
Now I want to do all I'm thinking of right now is doing a
Is having
video demonstration of this
Yeah,
now.
we totally could. So obviously we don't cover their, face. It just goes over their head. Although when we do a beard tracing, we do cover part of their face.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
So, and then we basically draw their hairline, and I take several measurements. So then I take that plastic off their head, and it has then become basically a mold of their head that then I put onto one of our block heads, and I can usually find one that fits pretty well, and then just pat it gently wherever their head is bigger than the block so that it makes a form of their head. And then we do a process called ventilating, which is, it's basically a it's a piece of lace. It's a very, very fine mesh. It's a honeycomb pattern mesh. It's called lace, but it's more of a mesh. Itty bitty, tiny little honeycomb shapes.
Tulle, kind of. Like
smaller than
for people who don't know, like it's going to be that kind of
texture
mesh.
and mesh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But like, I don't know how much smaller than
tiny
tulle,
holes.
But very, very tiny.
Yeah.
So this gets stretched over that head block with their head shape. And then we attach the back of, we attach the wig. So the wig sits probably where, right where your ears are, the top of your ears. So the wig actually fits back there. And then the whole front 4 inches is lace, or is this lace that then you tie in. So mostly it's 2 to 3 hairs in the back, and then you go up to 1 hair in the front. So if anybody knows what latch hook is, it's the same knot that you would use for like rug making. So it's that loop where it comes through. So it's that loop on a single hair, individual hair.
Oh my God.
Sometimes you're lucky that you can add more hairs than that. But yeah, so it's that. It's very, very tedious.
How long does it
Very
take?
time consuming.
Yeah.
Very time consuming.
I can't even imagine.
So for what we do, the front of the wig, like what I said, it's the hair can go from, depending on the hairline of the person. So men typically have a deeper hairline, so that means that we have to set the wig back even further, which means that there's more ventilating. So on a wig that's for a man, there's typically 3 to 4 inches of ventilating that has to be done in the front of the wig. And on a woman's, it can be, once again, depending on their hairline, but it can be usually 2 to 3 inches of ventilating. So that can, it can be 6 to 12 hours, and then can be even longer if you're tired.
Right, sure.
So it takes quite the time to do that. So that's the process we do. Now you can build an entire wig, so you're not using any kind of pre-made thing. You're building the whole foundation out of different types of lace and then ventilating hair into the whole wig cap. So it can, you can make it as hard as you want to.
It's why wigs are good wigs are so expensive.
Correct.
To buy,
Yeah.
because it
takes
man
time.
hours involved are so intense.
Yeah. Well, and hair, if you're using human hair, it's not inexpensive, and the building materials, that type of lace, is very expensive as well. So it's a costly process for sure.
crazy.
I can't even.
It makes all the difference, though, because I'm sure we all know when you go to the Halloween store and you buy the wig and you put it on and it's got this crazy, weird, hard, funky edge, and it looks funky on your head because it doesn't have any of that beautiful front work that Alita and her crew do to make them look like it's actual hair that's growing out of that performer's head.
Right. Yeah. This is, as someone who is, I do education, community engagement. I love these podcasts just because I don't know this stuff. It's fun to learn this stuff because you look on stage and all these people have worked to create this human that you see, and you just don't think about it. You're watching the show. They're just a human existing in clothes, and they look great, and you're not like, oh, someone spent 40 hours getting their hair and makeup done, and this costume took 3 months to make, and you just don't think about that stuff.
Well, and like Alita often has to do really sort of great things where the director, whoever, is like, oh, well, we want their hair to come down in 2 seconds. So then she has to put in pieces and pin. And
there's always, a want for the wig to act like natural hair, which it doesn't actually do the same way, right? And so, yeah, there's it's always, can it do this and then go back up and then go, instantly she's in a party dress and needs to have this crazy updo after she's been in bed all day with her hair long and flowy. And so there's all these things that we have to like do to make these.
A quick change for hair.
Yes.
That isn't
Often.
possible.
Yes.
It's barely possible.
It
happens often.
All the time. They're doing them. And like one character, so like Violetta is a really good example that Violetta often has at least 3 wigs in that show. And then on top of it, we double cast that stuff. They can't have the same wig. So that means that that's 6 wigs for one character.
Dang.
That Alita and her crew. So backstage, there's just heads with wigs. And then at the end of the show, they sit there and they clean, because if they have to use spirit gum to make the lace stick down, they have to clean all of that off of the wigs so that way they're nice, and they reblock them. And there's a ton of like beautiful fussy work that happens in order to make it look. I think that
I'm typically the first person in the building in the daytime because I have to come in and clean up wigs for hours and reset wigs and change the style sometimes and get entirely new wigs because something didn't fit on somebody properly once we got there. Like there's lots of things that happen when you're styling a wig on a blocked head. It may look lovely on that head, but when you put it on the person, you realize that the bun is not where it should be. Now it's like coming out of the top of their head instead of the back of their head because it's just not proportioned the same, or something wacky happens like that. So often it's like, all right, we have to, fix all these chorus wigs. We have to fix all these principal wigs. This person needs a completely new wig. So there's just things that go on during dress rehearsal that require a lot of extra work.
Yeah. Costumes gets the benefit often of, we see them in their thing once to twice before we see them during dress rehearsal. So we're dealing with trim and closures and maybe some color, blah, blah. But like a lot of our chorus and stuff, Alita doesn't see them in that wig until that first time that they walk on stage in dress rehearsal.
Yeah. Well, that's typically the principals are the same way. I get to I try them on them, but once I've styled it, I haven't seen it on them in a styled fashion. And sometimes with wigs, when you style a wig, the way the wig is constructed is it's very it doesn't have like a rigid inside. It's all very loose and it's made a lot with a lot of elastic and stuff like that to stretch over the head, obviously. But sometimes when you're styling, you can style it in a way where it kind of captures that interior stuff. So then it no longer fits when you put it on them. So you have to be mindful of that. There's just all this stuff that it's like, geez.
Yeah. Well, and then also inevitably, poor Alita Costumes is like, here's a hat that has to go on and off of that poor. So then there's little bows that we put in, and Alita and her crew are trying to pin things in and then take them off and pin a new piece in, and
head pieces.
Yeah, and that's fine. All those things.
It's just part of it,
but look lovely, but they, it's definitely wear and tear on the wig every night when you have a hat go on and hat come off, and something else go on. So they get a lot of, fixing every night to make sure they look.
In our big shows, Alita and I always end up having a conversation about like, well, the chorus member has to have a fancy do at the end, but they're a street sweeper, so they can't have the fancy do. So then we do a lot of, well, maybe they do have a hat in this scene to cover up the thing later,
right?
That's
because we don't want to see the fancy hairstyle, or we give them a mob cap so they don't have to have the wig on until they do that change.
That's so interesting.
And then sometimes they just have to have 2 wigs.
Yes, sometimes, but
we try to avoid that with the chorus because it's a lot. It's just
so many wigs.
It's a lot of
big
wigs.
Shows.
Yeah.
How many chorus members, for those of you who don't know, if you say a big show, Bohème, whatever, how many chorus members are there that you're?
40.
Yeah. And they have often at least 2 looks.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's a lot of wigs if they have 2 wigs per show.
And so the chorus, you're not putting wigs on the chorus members. Maybe you had a fitting or so, but dress rehearsal, right? So for those of us who don't know how much time is between that first dress rehearsal where you see them and opening night. So when you say you're fixing things and doing
Correct. So we get three dress rehearsals typically.
Yeah, if we do a double cast, we'll do 4 dress
right.
rehearsals.
Yeah. Yep.
But when we do a double cast, that means that 2 of the dress rehearsals are one cast and 2 of them are the other cast. So we only see the cast A, let's say, twice.
Yeah.
When we do 4 dress rehearsals, and then we're dark, quote unquote. That's a work day for us. Yep. Thursday
dark
is
for
the
performers.
day that we're like, fix everything and whatever. And then we open on Friday. So if we're doing 4 dress rehearsals, that Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, and Sunday are dress rehearsals. We're dark on Thursday, and then we open on Friday. So all of that, the very first time that Alita's seen all of those people, and our chorus often do their own makeup because we just don't have the time. So she's also dealing with helping them do makeup in a way that's successful. So all of that has to happen in 4 days, 5 days of time, essentially. It's a lot. There's a lot of hours that get smashed into that week for Alita's crew.
That's nuts. So what is the craziest or coolest thing you've ever been involved in?
There's always some wacky business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that there's always fun stuff like that happens, like that on stage.
From Cenerentola, their hair was really fun.
Yeah.
I thought, because I to Alita was like, it needs to look really stupid and fun. Go. And so she did these like really great tall fake hair things and sticky outs, and it flopped when they moved, and it was so great and funny.
It was they were really funny. Anytime there's anything wacky going on where we have, stuff like that, fun stuff that's going on stage I'm always excited about that kind of stuff.
So to end, we're going to do our fun trivia that we do. So I'm going to ask questions, give answers, and then Cassie and Alita are going to see if they can beat each other.
So we're playing against each other.
I mean,
sort of. We're not keeping track at all. There's no scoreboard or anything.
Okay.
But it's, afterwards it's sort of.
Our studio artist, pianist Robert, may have a scoreboard. We do not. He did mention keeping score. So pressure's on, but only a little bit.
All right. So here we go. Ancient Romans used what to treat freckles? Donkey urine, ashes from snails, or nightingale feces?
Oh my goodness.
What?
In case we didn't know, people back in the day used really weird, gross things.
Oh yes.
For makeup and hair.
Yes, they did. Wow. I don't actually know that, but
I'm good. Oh, I don't even know what to guess. I think I don't know.
I'm going with donkey urine.
Okay.
I was kind of going to go with ashes from snails.
Okay. Just because.
I don't know. I feel like ashes are often, I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I was trying to think of what would make a freckle like
disappear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
All right. So, true or false? Queen Elizabeth thought lipstick brought on evil spirits.
I feel like I should know all these things, but I don't.
I had a lot of fun finding these particular
I'm going to go with true, I think. But I don't know.
Yeah, let's go with true.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of like pictures of her imagery. She always had just like a little pointy mouth. So, yeah, let's go with
Okay.
That's true.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Alita. It's so nice to give everyone an insight. Like I said, people don't know that these things happen.
Yep.
You don't realize that is not their hair and they didn't do it themselves. So
thank
you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you with us.
Lots of fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for joining, Alita. I always enjoy talking with you.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's nice to be able to do it with Cassie now, too.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again.
ladies.
Yep. Thank you for joining us for our 5th episode of Arizona Opera Behind the Scenes. Join us next month as we sit down with Elena Maniscalco, the prop supervisor at Arizona Opera. Arizona Opera Behind the Scenes is made possible by our lead digital sponsors for the 2021 season, Ron and Kay McDougall. This program is also part of the Arizona Opera Next Gen initiative that encompasses a wide variety of programs that go beyond the opera stage to develop the next generation of opera artists, audiences, and philanthropists. To learn more about the programs that are part of Arizona Opera Next Gen, please visit azopera.org and click Next Gen Initiative. These programs are made possible through the support of Karen Fruin, Roma Witkoff, Jeanette J. Siegel, the Valentine Family Foundation, APS, and Jody Pelusi. This podcast is produced by its hosts with editing and music composition by Sean Mallow.